What's the most surprising thing that you've learned from Dave Ramsey?
I think his tenacity and grit and perseverance is awe-inspiring. Like the fact that this guy is still at it 30 years later with more energy and more passion than ever before. I'm like, I want to be that invested in whatever I'm doing. And so he keeps us on our toes. But what I've learned from him there is that work is about more than work. Like it's not a job. It's not something where I'm just like, I'm doing it for the paycheck and one day, I'll call it quits. Like this dude is going to keep going until he can't keep going, and he'll probably outlive me just out of sheer spite. But his passion around it has just really inspired me to go like, obviously that thing for me is personal finance, and I didn't realize that until later on in my life. But also the way he's leaving a legacy, like the way he's thinking so future. I mean, he's been thinking about personalities for a long time. You guys talked about this. His succession plan, you joked about Dave Ramsey's retirement plan. Everyone's like, no, Dave, don't go. I'm like, he's not going anywhere. But it was a good title. I'll give you that. So it's just made me think more big picture and more long term and less about like, what am I doing? What's my thing? And more, what's everyone around me? How are they being affected by my life? And so that's a really interesting way to frame things up.
I have a question. Now, don't feel like you need to answer this question. I don't know if it will cause any tension or anything.
I just won't answer if I don't want to.
Yeah, by all means, we can cut it out. But
Dave is not my dad.
Dang it, man. Everyone wanted
People
to know.
wonder.
Yeah. No, Dave was under fire recently for 8% withdrawal rate. What do you think about that? Do you think 8% withdrawal rate is fine? Do you think that could be a good benchmark for people when they're trying to retire?
I think there's certain situations where that would be totally fine. If you follow the Ramsey plan and you have a giant nest egg and that's your plan, then that's sustainable. If you look at real numbers, hypothetically, like this is all, it's like your $1 billion question. Would you get $1 billion and do this? The realistic numbers are if you had $2 million in retirement and you were withdrawing 8%, you would be okay with a paid for house, money in the bank, and you would adjust. And Dave said on the show with Rachel was like, well, hey, what if the return that year was 10% instead of 12? You go, well, you could take it down to 6%. But the key here is being flexible with your spending in retirement. So in retirement, if you're going, I need 12 grand to sustain this or else it's all going to fall apart, you've already failed. You need to have a lot of margin for error in retirement. And that's why we tell people, like, invest 15% as soon as you're out of debt. Once you have the house paid off, invest way more, max out retirement accounts. So the amount of people who are actually having to live this out is probably slim to none. The argument of 4% or 6% or 8%. And there's a lot of studies that show, because all of this is based on the Monte Carlo simulation.
Or the Trinity study.
Monte Carlo situation. And so a lot of them showed you could have negative money in retirement. You could have way more than you ever imagined in retirement.
But it's the failure rate of Dave Ramsey's.
It's the failure
8%
rate.
Over
it's
30.
48% or 60% failure rate.
It was
Depending
at
on
a
who you
point.
looked at.
Yeah, it was over a 30-year time frame, but there was a high failure rate, and it's like, do you want to give that to a 50-50 coin flip of failing that? Assuming you keep your expenses at 8% adjusted for inflation every year, beginning the first year. The other thing is that if you have a few bad years initially, it's almost 100%
sequence of risk
wage.
return is what you're
Absolutely.
talking about. Yeah, sure. And I think realistically, people adjust lifestyle depending on market conditions. And so that's why I think what Dave was saying was there's a lot of hope stealers out there who are like, if you don't have $2 million, you're screwed because you have to do 4%. If you don't do that, you're screwed. What Dave's saying is you're going to be okay. If you have no debt and $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in retirement, you're going to have a fine life and you can withdraw more than 4%.
Did Dave talk to you at all about this after the call? Because it seemed like he said, if George said something like that, we're going to take the video down.
Oh, yeah. Well, the producer talked to him. He was like, hey, the caller took that out of context maliciously. Here's what George actually said. And Dave was like, oh, okay, cool. And moved on with this day. But no, we didn't
crazy
have
on Twitter because we know this.
The financial community blew up over this.
The day before posting our Dave Ramsey video, this blew up on Twitter. And I was texting Jack. I'm like, dude, you see this stuff going down on Twitter? Tens of millions of views. Everyone is posting memes of like Dave Ramsey with like Lambos and this luxury lifestyle.
Oh my
gosh. Like withdrawing 8%.
That's hilarious.
It was hilarious.
Well, the financial community for a long time has loved to use Dave as a punching bag for clicks and views. We all know that. And in the same clip, Dave has helped millions of people, and these people are in their mom's basement with their, they just became financial advisors and they have an opinion and they've helped almost nobody. And so I get why they're railing against it, and their job is to, be financial advisors and do whatever the financial community does. But I think it's such a funny hypothetical situation or argument and so nerdy that I'm like, again, it's a wonderful argument to have. The fact is, people aren't saving for retirement. So whether we're going to argue about 4 or 6 or 8% is a silly thing when I'm like, people aren't even investing.
Is there anything you disagree with Dave about?
I'm trying to think, like, obviously we agree on our anti-debt stance. We agree on the investing stance, and he's cool in index funds as well. He invests in index funds in a brokerage account when he gets like a bonus check. But we have the same investing strategy, philosophy. We're probably invested in the same funds in our 401k. I'm probably more like on the millennial side. I'm probably just into things that he may not be into. One being Teslas. He's a Tesla hater, unfortunately. But that's not really a financial. He still would probably say it was a bad financial decision that Rachel and I drive Teslas. But as far as spending goes, I don't think we have much to disagree on. I mean, and it's not even like I'm towing the company line of like, I have to agree with Dave on everything. I fully agree with the baby steps. And we've went back and forth about baby step 1, $1,000 emergency fund, and debt avalanche for a snowball, and what is a full emergency fund, and what's the best way to invest. But truly, like, I've lived out his principles and they worked. And so like, I only have good things to say, not only because of my experience, but millions of others that have come before me and after me.
Do you have any advice for Dave Ramsey?
Don't let the trolls get to you, Dave.
Do they?
Well, I think like he'll get riled up, on air. And I have more patience with the like 20-year-old who wants to argue about the nerdy stuff. And I think at this point he's just like, I got people to help, man. Why are you clogging up my phone lines wanting to argue about this thing? You know what I mean? I don't think Dave needs any of my advice. I think he's doing great. He's living his values out beautifully. He just went to Egypt for like 2 weeks with his wife.
I saw
an amazing trip.
He spent that 8%.
He spent a good, healthy chunk of money. So that's the cool thing about Dave is he's so balanced when it comes to spending, saving, and giving. Like we would call that a flat tire. He's great at spending money. He's great at resting. Like when he's not at work, the dude is at the lake house. He's enjoying himself in Cabo. He's living a great life. He's saving plenty of money. He's investing wisely for the future, and he's also giving outrageously. I mean, in ways that boggle my mind. And so I don't have any advice for Dave other than maybe I'm trying to think on the millennial side of things. I'd be like, come on, Dave, like loosen up on this thing. I'm trying to think generationally because, we get a bad rap, millennials, Gen Z. But even Dave is quick to say, like, there's Gen Zers that suck, there's Gen Zers that are awesome. And we see a lot of both. But I think he can give them the Reddit community a bad rap, for one, Twitter community.
Sure.
Because he only gets the trolls. And so in his mind, only trolls exist on those platforms. But sometimes, I appreciate the honesty of the people on there, saying their truth. But he's quick to block them as well.